Greetings, it is I, or Carisper, welcoming you to not quite a tour through the Sanguine Archives, because today we are looking more at role-playing games in general. I was asked by a friend who watches these videos that they kind of like what I do, but they don't really know much about the World of Darkness or pen and paper role-playing in general. So I thought I will make a general video about the topic, just so that everyone is up to date. I want to shout out a friend here, kind of, Butterfly Jesus, also known as the Terminator Model T69. Have fun, and this is more or less for you and everyone who isn't so familiar with role-playing games yet. I also try to do this kind of non-scripted, so please excuse me if I make mistakes or something stupid, because this is completely out of my head, just ranting about it. So what are role-playing games? Role-playing games in general are games where you, well, play a role. That shouldn't be quite surprising, but in the games we talk about, pen and paper role-playing games, you actually imagine playing a game mostly in your head, using dice to decide if some things can be done or can't be done. There is of course video games in which you also play a role of someone, but they are way more limited in the things that you can and can't do and how the story can or cannot progress. In usual pen and paper role-playing games, it's more akin to actually writing a story or writing a book. Usually you have a game master or dungeon master who is kinda introducing the setting, the area you are in, who is taking care of the surroundings, the city that you are in, is describing what you are seeing, what is surrounding you, gives you an atmosphere about, say, a busy market and stuff like that, plays the so-called non-player characters that are kind of like statist people in movies, like people who don't really have a big role but they're just kinda there. They also play the main they are the antagonists and pretty much most that the players encounter during the game. So the game master is kind of the writer of the story. However, the player characters, the players, they actually make the story happen. They are the ones that the story is focused around. You will always see the story in the perspective of the player characters. They will always be the ones setting things in motion and actually deciding where the story goes. They're the ones doing stuff and deciding or trying to achieve various things and what they want to achieve. They are kinda the heroes of the game. So you actually play a role that you decide what you want to play, and then you just play it out, and the game master decides what happens, how the world reacts to your actions. You will need this is called, well, a Heldenbogen in German, a character sheet in English. It's usually a document from varying pages. Some franchises have a character sheet of 1 or 2 pages. This one is rather elaborate. It's 17 pages for Das Schwarze Auge or Realms of Arcania, where you can make everything visible that your character can and can't do and stuff like that. So as example, we have the attributes that tell you how strong you are, how good you are looking, how dexterous you are, how agile you are, how much vitality you have, do you get sick easily, are you able to take a punishment and some hits, stuff like that. It's also telling you about how intelligent you are supposed to be, your wisdom and other things. The sheet usually also contains a lot of information on your skills. So what are you good at? How good are you at, say, hunting, fighting with a sword, bargaining with traders, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different skills that you can have. It usually also contains a lot of background information on your character, like the age, the culture that they come from, where they were raised, if they have a surviving family, how they look. That is kind of important depending on where you're playing as well. A short history of what they already achieved in the game, and so on and so forth. Usually you will also have a special branch for special merits and flaws that your character has. As example, he could have only one eye and thus be a bit impaired in his vision or when aiming with a gun and stuff like that. There is a rather big bow for spells, so which spells can your character cast if he has magic abilities, which combat maneuvers does he know if he is more of a melee fighter, which armor does he have, what is inside the inventory, basically everything that you see in role-playing video games, just on sheets. These are very helpful for the game master to see how he can write the story so that the heroes can actually achieve something. As example, if you have a group full of thieves, a story centered about a battlefield combat might not be the best idea because the heroes have little chance of succeeding. With that out of the way, the thing is about role-playing games that while you write the story you will encounter certain hurdles, some problems. You will have to make skill checks if you can actually do something you want to do. As example, can you climb over a wall that is in your way? And you have multiple ways of approaching it. The special thing about pen and paper role-playing games is that you can do everything that's logical and game master approved. You can find a lot of ways if you are creative on how to actually fix the problem. While in video games you usually only have 1, 2, maybe, if it's really elaborate, 3 possible options to solve a problem, while you could think of multiple ways to actually solve the issue yourself, but the game doesn't allow you to do that. In role-playing games, it's all about negotiating with the game master. So say you need to enter a certain area that is walled off. You can climb over the wall, sure. You can try to bribe the guards. You can try to sneak in. You can try to purchase a trampoline and jump over the wall. You can tear the wall down. You have a lot of options. Not all of them are intelligent options, but you can basically do whatever. You can try to fly over them if you have a magic ability, and so on and so forth. So there's always ways to get in there. A tricky way may be to actually disguise yourself as a servant of the Lord or something like that and just get inside that way. A quite creative player may actually able to pull off, hey, I'm a friend of the guy and I want to surprise him for his birthday or whatever, and get into there that way. However, you should be a bit charismatic if you try to pull that off. With that said, the way that you decide how you can do something or if you can do it and how well you do it is rolling dice. Now there's different dice that you might need for different games. There is the classical 6-sided die, which you definitely know from board games, that is usually also used in pen and paper games. There is a 10-sided die that is more used in World of Darkness, which we are mainly focusing on. Then there are dice that I don't have quite here yet, because that's my kit for the World of Darkness, including of course a pen. There is 20-sided dice that you may need for Realms of Arcania. There's 100-sided dice that sometimes can come in handy for Pathfinder. There is 3-sided dice. There's 4-sided dice, and there is a variant of all of those. Basically as many or little as you want. Though the usually common ones that you should have is a 6-sided, a 10-sided and a 20-sided. That should be enough for pretty much most games. Depending on the system, you have to either roll high or a low number. As I said, it totally depends, and what you have to roll may be increased or decreased in difficulty depending on what you plan to do. Say you would try to climb the wall. Is the wall climbable? Like, does it have clear cracks that you can put your fingers and your feet in and climb over there that way? Or is it just a concrete wall that is completely flat and you have no chance without actual equipment like a rope or something that you can throw over the wall? Is the wall basically somewhere in between, or is it just a meter high and you can just jump over it? So depending on that, it will be decided if it's more or less difficult to do so, and will decide how much or how low you have to roll to actually succeed. Then there is additional things that can come in. Say the weather. Is it actually freezingly cold and it just rained before, so there's actually a sheet of ice on the wall that makes climbing pretty much impossible? Are you that drunk and thus can't even get over a 1 meter high wall because you're just so wasted that you can't lift your feet? Are you somehow impaired. Maybe you just have one arm, that makes it more difficult, of course. Maybe you just recovered from a severe leg injury and thus can't really use your leg properly. That makes it more difficult, and so on and so forth. To decide if you actually succeeded, you roll the die and then you look at the results, and they will tell you if you succeeded way better than you thought you would, like you would basically just climb over the wall in a minute, or if you succeeded okay-ish, so you still managed to get over the wall but you needed 5 minutes to do it, or you weren't able to climb the wall at all, meaning a failure, or if you roll a botch, that is again depending on the system a different way to roll a botch. If you botched it, you actually somewhat climbed the wall and then you lost your grip and fell down, usually suffering an injury or some other bad side effect, like alarming the guards with the noise that you make. All of that can happen, of course. So with that out of the way, the cool thing about role-playing games is in pen and paper version is that you get to socialize a lot with your game master and the group that you're playing with. Usually you're playing with a group of friends, originally at the table, these days more or less online. We have a Discord group for role-playing where you can find groups if you want to. There is various websites like Roll20 where you can meet up with strangers to play role-playing games. There is multiple Discord groups, there is groups on Skype and so on and so forth, just to play over, say, a webcam or just with voice, or sometimes there is forums where you just write the role-playing games. Everything is possible, really. The coolest thing about is that, as I said, you don't really have restrictions and you can interact with pretty much everything. The game master sometimes has to make something up on the fly if you interact with something he absolutely didn't think he would. It can also lead to very hilarious situations when you misjudge a situation and the result is just devastatingly hilarious, let's say. I think I might do another video just on hilarious fails in role-playing. Sometimes you forget things. I give you one. So there was a mission where an assassin had to enter a building to assassinate the Sultan of a place. So he managed to climb over the balcony, and the moment he enters the hallway to the private chambers of the Sultan, the assassin was attacked by 2 guards. And the game master said, well, there's 2 guards standing in front of you with their weapons drawn, what do you do? And the assassin was like, I pull out my blades and lick the edge, just to show that I'm bloodlusted. And the game master blinks. You mean the daggers that you just poisoned? Oh fuck! Character death. Now, you don't have to actually kill the character, but it can be quite hilarious if you forget something. With that said, the real charm from role-playing games is also the atmosphere that you can create. Usually you use ambient music that helps, you can serve dishes that are fitting the area that you're playing in. As example, when my family and I were playing in the jungles of Al-Anfa, which is the Schwarze Auge realms of Arcania, I served fruit salad and certain berries and nuts that were common for jungle areas, like very exotic fruits, and I just had that as a dish. Also very bitter chocolate that the natives made in a little village, and so on and so forth. You can of course talk however you like and the way you like and whatever you want to do. The reactions can also be very fitting and personalized to your character, unlike it is the case in video games. And in vast difference to movies, you actually impact the story. You decide how things go or do not go. Another hilarious example that I just want to share real quick was when the group that I was playing in had to rescue slaves from a mine and free them, of course, because slavery is bad and so on and so forth. So we entered the mine, killed some guards and started freeing slaves, and our game master was like, you will so bite your asses, you will so bite your asses. And we continued freeing the slaves and so on and so forth, killed more guards, freeing more slaves, killed a monster, freeing more slaves, and every room we entered our game master was like, you will so bite your asses. And so we finished the entire story, we freed every slave and decided at the final moment to make the entire mine collapse so that nobody can be forced to work there anymore. So we did, and our game master had this big grin on his face and was like, okay, now that it's over, let me tell you. Have you never ever questioned what exactly those guys were mining down there? They were mining diamonds. Pure, huge diamonds. If you had just picked a handful, you'd all be rich right now. But no, you decided to just collapse the entire thing. Congratulations. Well, we did bite our asses. Just saying. So it can be quite fun. Another thing about role-playing games to keep in mind is that some people say it's the most social way of eating pizza, which is a stereotype, but pizza consumption is usually very common in role-playing games and role-playing groups if you meet at the table. As I said, online, not so much, but it can be very, very hilarious and just a great source of fun. The other good thing about role-playing games in the pen and paper version is that you can usually play whatever you like. Now, of course, the Game Master has the ultimate say in it, because the Game Master has to actually create a story with your characters, and they usually want to tell a story, so if you make a character that doesn't fit in at all, the Game Master doesn't have to allow it, but most Game Masters are pretty lenient with what they will allow in, as long as it's not absolutely ridiculous. And for creating your character, there's a lot of things that you might need to know, and to get into a bit more in-depth of the franchise that you're actually playing, but that is, I think, something for another video. So to end this, the coolest thing is that you get to know the other people quite well, because you can play different roles in different situations and see how they react. There is also different levels of role-playing, and some are elitists who say you have to play the most difficult to play roles and portray them 100% correct, fitting all the stereotypes but without actually fitting any stereotype, and they're just the hardcore role players that won't allow, well, for something a bit different. Then there is the very, very casual role players that just go whatever you like. Even if it's not even in the game world, you can play it anyway. Whatever you have fun with, because that's the most important thing about it. You have to have fun with your group and the Game Master. As long as you have fun, there is no wrong way to play it. Though I have to say that I personally would appreciate it a lot if you at least try to portray the role that you picked. You can perfectly pick something that actually is close to you. That's actually something that most beginners do in role-playing games, picking a role that they can see themselves actually being in that world and playing yourself in that world. That can help to ease in, but many role players use the chance to play something completely different that they could never be in real life, a character that is as different as it can be from themselves. Kinda like actors do. And then you're portraying that role, trying to speak like they would, think like they would, solve issues like they would. And that can also be quite hilarious. Now I'm ranting a bit too much, I guess. There's one more thing I want to show you, and that is rulebooks. There's a lot of different franchises with a lot of different rulebooks. I'm just picking this one because it's one of my favorites. It's also from Realms of Arcania. You have usually nice artwork in there, a lot of text that explains you how things are done or supposed to be. There is in stats for demons and how you can portray them in your game with artwork again, as this rulebook in special is for demons in Realms of Arcania and how to make pacts, stuff like that. So can be quite interesting. They also vary a lot in how thick they are. This is a rather little small rulebook with just 150 pages. There is one that have 300 pages plus that size, and You usually need multiple rulebooks if you want to play as a game master. This can look quite overwhelming, and indeed a big criticism of Realms of Arcania is that they have a ton of rulebooks. Like you can read a lot. You can read 2000 pages like this and still not be done with everything. But usually they also have a player's guide to something, which just helps you to get all the important information in like 50 pages, and that's all you need in order to play. If you want to game master a game, you should know more. You don't have to, but I always think it's good if at least the game master sticks to the lore, because you are immersing yourself in a different world. Which would lead me into why World of Darkness is so great, but that is for another video. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, comment, ask questions if you have them, click the notification bell, tell your friends about the crazy guy with the messy hair, and to my defense, hairdressers have closed right now, so what are you supposed to do? I'm also using my hair to hide the mic. Hope it's working. Have fun and see you next time on the Sanguine Archives. Thank you.